Welcome to Intuitive Connections, where spirituality and psychology meet to help you be your best and brightest self. I'm your host, Victoria Shaw, and in each episode, I'll help you to awaken your own inner wisdom, step into your power, and live a more divinely inspired life. You're here to let your inner light shine. Are you ready? Let's do this. So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. Today we have another intuitive reading, and I'm excited for this one because I already tuned into this lovely guest's energy and it's just delightful. And although I don't know what her question's going to be yet, I do know that the guides have a lot that they want to share. So Avril, welcome to the show.
I'm coming in from New Zealand.
Oh, beautiful. Yay. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what day and time is it there for you? It's like tomorrow morning?
Yeah. It's 7 a.m. Friday.
I love that.
It's always good to be in the future.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like noon on Thursday here. It's so interesting. And yet there's only the now.
And my now is the same as your now. It's so fascinating.
Exactly. There's just one now, but here in this weird human world, we have these weird time zones. Go figure.
Yeah.
All right. So please share with us what you'd like guidance on today.
I would love guidance on general life direction. So I know it's really fluffy, and seems really big, but any guidance would be incredible.
All right. I'm going to kind of tune in. And can you give me any other specifics, or we are just going to start there?
It's about general life because at the moment I'm balancing homeschooling my son, I'm balancing getting my business with momentum and balancing all of the life stuff. And I guess having some guidance on the direction my life is going would be really supportive to being able to encompass all of that.
Bingo. All right. The first thing that comes through when you say that is you are actually in charge of the direction that your life is going. So sometimes, right, we think that there's like some overarching thing that we need to do, whatever. But what the guides want you to know, first and foremost, out of the gate, is that you are actually calling the shots and you are actually creating the direction in which you are heading. So your real question is, am I on the right path? Am I aligned? How do I get aligned more? Because you are already calling the shots. You are already creating the direction. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And they want to make that really, really, really clear. Okay.
Yeah. And that helps me. It's like, how do I get more aligned?
Right. Yeah. Because the real question is, when we ask that question a lot of times, is we're always creating our lives. We can't not be. That's actually what we do. That is the name of the game in the human experience. You are creating your life with your higher self. But depending on how much sort of ego conditioning, unconsciousness you bring to the table versus soul, spirit, broader awareness, or what Abraham Hicks, which is one of my new favorite spiritual teachers, might call deliberate creation, right? When we're creating with more consciousness and awareness, right? Depending on that balance, that's how you experience your life. And the good thing is, first of all, we're all a mixed bag. So, you're going to be creating from lots of different places all the time, and they're all right. There's nothing wrong with anything. But when we start to want to align with our purpose or our higher selves or our path, what we're really saying is, I want to be a more deliberate creator. I want to experience more alignment. I want to live the life that my soul wants me to live, rather than living mostly from that human stuff. And the human stuff, right? That's our conditioning. That's our ego. That's a lot of times our pain points. That's what we've learned from the world that we should do. And most human beings live blindly from that place, and there's nothing wrong with it. But as we move into the new age, and some of us are way ahead of that, and you are one of them, we start to understand too, we could just have fun now. We could just have fun now. And we want to live more in joy and well-being and see and experience life the way our soul wants to. You also have a deep, if I'm reading you correctly, and always tell me if I'm not, but my read is that you have a very deep sense of purpose. You want your life to be aligned with something that, helps your soul express itself through this human container that is Avril and make an impact on the world. Is that the right person I got there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's implicit in your question too. You are someone who understands that or feels that, and a little bit of both, that part of the reason you're here on earth is to do something, to make a difference, to fulfill a mission and purpose. And you don't want to get off the highway at the wrong exit. And I get that. First of all, the guides say, if you get off the highway at the wrong exit, what happens? We all have GPS now, and you have one in your vehicle, right? You're going to know. You're going to say like, oh my God, wait. I thought I was going to this restaurant or this convention or this concert or this person's house, and I'm off the highway now and it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right. It doesn't feel good. I don't really like this neighborhood, right? Then you're going to look down on your little GPS and it's going to get you back on track. Okay. And sometimes those detours are important. I'm thinking about back to good old Abraham. I'm thinking about a video I heard not so long ago that they're always using these examples of Esther Hicks spacing out. And, in that spacing out, she winds up in some amazing place, right? So sometimes too, we get off the track for a reason, and there's really no way to, every step you take in your life is of value to you. So though our human mind wants to say, this choice is better than that choice because it's more direct, because it's more aligned, because it's more happy, that's the little evaluative voice in your mind, that's kind of irrelevant. And the more you align with joy, it is true, the more you experience joy. The more you align and create from your own well-being, the more you experience that flow of well-being. And that's a nice thing because that is the natural state of your soul. And living here more and more enriches ourselves and the planet as a whole. So it's a win. But it's unrealistic to think you're going to do that 1,000% of the time. Well, there's no such thing as 1,000%, but even 100%, we're human and we're going to do all sorts of different things. And there's absolutely, completely no wrong steps because every step that you take is a new opportunity to reawaken and to realign. And you can realign for wherever you are. And, the guys are giving me this example of, I get this all the time too. If you ever watch the old time cartoons like Bugs Bunny, and those of you that are too young for this, Google it. But I'm sure it's available on YouTube. But there's always that moment when, the coyote runs across the canyon and he's halfway over the canyon running in the air when he realizes that he's way up high and then he falls, right? But if you don't have that realization and you recognize, hey, I got halfway across this canyon and I didn't fall, so I can get the other half of the way, right? That's the magic trick. That's the magic trick. And that's the magic trick that your life is asking you to start to make more and more right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's understanding that even if you walk off the cliff, you can still fly.
Mm.
And even if you find yourself in a heap of bones on the bottom, that's okay too, but it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. It hasn't happened before. It's not your path. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I'm going to say one more thing and then I'm going to let you process because I feel like I'm rapid firing. So I hope it's okay. But the other thing that came up around this that I kind of glossed over that I don't think you knew yet, so I want to check in, is the interconnection between your purpose and your joy. Is that anything you ever considered before? Or did you think of those as two different things?
Yes, logically, I know that the two are very interconnected, but the embodiment of that is a struggle for me. So I feel when I go into purpose, I get very masculine and ordered and organized, and this is what I have to do. And joy and fun, because you mentioned fun earlier, kind of gets pushed aside and becomes almost prescriptive. Okay, well, here's my time for fun, and here's my time for purpose.
So here's the deal. You want to find your purpose, follow your joy and fun, because that is your purpose. And, the purpose of every human being on earth, and I want to get this from the guides, but they're laughing at me, so they told me not to pause, is to live according to your soul. Like, be here, do the work, live in alignment, be who you are, express your gifts, express your not gifts. And the name of the game as we do this, as many of us are signing up to do, is just to simply live our lives with greater awareness, greater purpose, greater alignment. It is not something that we have to measure. It is not a bar or a test that we have to pass. It's simply just the fun of your soul playing. Your soul is playing, and your soul plays when you make a mess, and your soul plays when you make a masterpiece. Your soul doesn't care. And the more that you live like that, the more masterpieces you'll probably make, just because, the soul is a masterful creator, but it doesn't matter. And your soul loves the messes as much as the masterpiece. And that's the first thing they want you to understand. Mm-hmm. Your soul makes no distinction. Your soul loves it all. Okay? Mm-hmm. And your purpose and mission is simply to be here. So the day that you got born, you are fulfilling that. And again, what you're really asking is, I'd like to live with more alignment. I'd like to live with more joy, right? And again, purpose can be a heavy word because it feels like a lot of shoulds, a lot of rules. It feels like a test. It feels like a burden. Whew, that energy just hurts my heart a little bit. Your purpose is always a joy. It's always a pleasure. It's always an awakening. It's always an alignment. It's always an unburdening. That is your purpose. And that is what you're learning to do more and more of every single day. Okay?
I love that. I love it's an unburdening.
Yeah.
That feels like a great big soft sigh.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what your guides are inviting you to do. Because you've had a life where you've carried a lot of stuff and you've carried a lot of shoulds. And a lot of it comes from your paternal side of the family and a lot of obligations and understanding there. And it's not that it was wrong or bad. It's just that you're tired. You're tired of caring for everyone. You're tired of living up to everyone else's expectations. You're tired of trying to please everyone. You're just tired. So unburdening it's just right, because what your soul really longs and desires to do is to play. How old are your kids?
I've just got one night. He's 9.
Yeah. Remember when that child was 5 or 6? Do you remember watching him play?
Yes.
How was that for you when he was a child, watch him play?
Back then it was trickier because I think play was something he struggled with back then. Now it's much more fluid for him. It's an interesting softening into it for me watching it.
Wow, that's really powerful. What is your son's name? Do you mind if I tune into his energy?
No, Keelan.
And I think I know, but why was play difficult for him when he was little?
He's neurodiverse.
That's
so
what
I
I
think
thought.
he didn't know how to play.
So here's what he would like to tell you. This is a little off topic, but it's good. He said, I knew how to play just fine. What I didn't know how to do is play the way y'all thought I was supposed to be playing. But if you really watch me, I knew how to play just fine. He's telling me, look, I was more loosely grounded to the earth when I was a young child than someone with different brain wiring. But I was here, I was there. And if you would know where he would go in his mind, you would understand the great sacrifice he came for letting you pin him down. Sometimes our neurodiverse friends, right, they're in a much grander place. So
I know.
It wasn't a struggle for him, it was a struggle for you. But also, and this is really surprising, and I didn't expect this to come through at all, but your own complicated relationship with allowing yourself to feel into play and joy from your own childhood, from your own understanding, is part of what you were struggling with and learning from when you watched him and you saw what he was struggling with. And though I don't think you're neurodiverse at all, there was a freedom and joy that you never experienced or expressed, even as a young child. So I almost feel like, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I almost feel like there wasn't a portal for you to bring that in at that point in time for your child. Because you wouldn't have known how to support that with your inner child, because you were, normally those first couple years we get to play, but you hit the ground hard. So I feel that very early on, by 2 years old, you were pretty much not playing anymore and working and pleasing. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And your childhood really wasn't your own. So I just want to take a second and give you a hug there because it's really hard. And this young man that came through, he's one of your greatest teachers.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. He's your little Merlin. The word Merlin comes up, like your little wizard friend, And so let him be that way. You're 100% his mom, he says. You're 100% his mom. You're 100% his teacher. You are navigating and guiding him well. I think you're going to learn a little bit more to strike that beautiful balance between letting him be who he is, because he is a force of nature, and, supporting him and interfacing with the world. But he's got this. I'm not worried about him at all. Actually, you're more worried about him than is warranted, but I understand why that would be just based on his start. But he's very tuned into his mission and purpose. He's very comfortable with himself. He doesn't have a problem. He's like, she has the problem, I'm good. And remember too, sometimes when they're little and they're not interfacing with the world properly, their human body can feel like they're in more distress than their soul is in. So can be a frustration, a screaming. It's more just a lack of integration in the body than a true suffering on the level of what he was experiencing at those times. And this is all pretty complex for online reading, but what the heck? Someone's got to hear it. The other piece is sometimes we process a lot of our own frustration through our kids. He wasn't there, so you don't have to worry about it. You've harmed him, not at all. But some of those early frustrations that he had that you felt into with him were yours more than his. He was okay.
Okay.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, really does.
Yeah. And no one was there to see or support you through those moments. So having him experience that in such an intense way and holding space for him, it gave you a great healing. And I'm not concerned about him at all. He wasn't there.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, total sense. That's really reassuring.
Yeah.
because the mind thinks about all of the impact of my stuff on him. And you're right, those very big emotions, they were mine.
Yeah. And he agreed to help you process them in a way that, because he was more loosely tied to his body, he's good. He's okay. Now your job is going to be to empower him, to start to disengage from overprotecting him, overparenting him, which is going to be your greatest challenge, because you you're like, you don't want him to experience anything that's the least bit uncomfortable, discordant, anything. And he wants you to know, Mom, I can take it. I'm good. I'm a really strong soul. I'm really wise. I got this. You got to take a step back. You got to let me do me. Now is the time for you to tune into your own inner child and know when she's hurting because she's watching him, and start to separate. Okay? Because that's going to help everybody, including him. And he's really strong. He's really powerful. And he's a kid that always is going to know exactly what he wants. So learning to listen is going to be really important. He's not going to steer himself wrong. Okay. And where he acts up, where he has temper tantrums, it's where your energies are overlapping and mixed, and his dad a little bit too. So as you start to do your own inner work about getting out of his space and tending to your own feelings and not imposing on him, which you have a good idea what I'm talking about. So you're, you know what I mean? Like, you're mostly there. But as you do that even more with more discernment, you're going to get out of the way, and he's going to thrive even more. He may not have a typical life, but I don't think he's going to have a bad one. Like, he's going to have a very interesting one, and the one exactly that his soul chose. And I don't see any concerns with him being independent, if that is a concern of yours. You know?
Yeah.
He may need extra support, you know, like, he's quirky. He's going to live his own life. He's not going to do what anyone else wants him to do. He's not supposed to. And it's a beautiful gift that you get to be the one to parent him, because, like, you're learning more and more that, you know, you're shepherding. We all learn this, but some of us just get the memo louder, that you're shepherding a soul with his very own mission and purpose. And that, you know, all of the societal rules that you might want to impose on him are completely irrelevant to his mission and purpose. Got it?
Yeah, loud and clear. Brilliant.
Right. And he'll have to learn how to interface with the world, but he's a little charmer. He knows how to get what he needs out of people. With the whole homeschooling thing, that might be a conversation for another day, but you're going to be rethinking that soon about how you do it. Okay? Like, it's a lot of burden on you, and there needs to be, if you don't have it already, more people involved that aren't you in his care and keeping. And a little bit more understanding too, that the dings and bruises that we get in life, now you've had some big ones, but he's not going to have big ones like that. So again, it's about continue on your own healing journey, my friend. But the dings and bruises for him are going to be kind of minimal, and you're going to guide him through processing them, but you don't have to protect him from everything. He's got to have some of that. He's got to, because, you know, he does plan to interface somewhat with the world. So it's not about raising your child in a padded cell. Right? It's about, as that child gets older, no, sure, they start in the playpen. They start, you know, in the sling on your body. Like, that's how it begins. But over time, we have to let them be in the world a little bit so they can, you know, the baby bird doesn't stay in the nest forever, right? The baby bird has to learn how to fly. And that's where you're getting. The other piece that comes through on the care and keeping of your beautiful child, but it also applies to you, is other people have a lot of shoulds. Other people have a lot of ideas about what should be happening now. Some of those things feel very right to you, and some of them feel very wrong. As you start to tune into and heal even more that inner child stuff, right? Where you're not in protective mom mode all of the time, and you're also not in disempowered, I don't know anything and the experts know everything mode, which is not a big one for you, but it comes up from time to time. You're going to be able to just hear your guidance with respect to him a little bit more clearly, hear his guidance, and know, like, how to shepherd him without patting everything over, but with also not listening, because a lot of what you're being told is just, it's not helpful for him, and you know it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. But you're doing fine. I'm just giving you the blueprint of what you're working on, not telling you have to get it 100% tomorrow. You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Cool.
The guides want me to ask you, in all of your hopes and dreams, if the sky's the limit and you have no constraints, what would you dream of doing with your life in addition to being a mom? Because I know that's important to you. What else do you dream about?
I dream about freedom.
I love that. You dream about freedom. What does freedom look like? When you're free, what are you doing? What are you experiencing?
It feels more than it looks. It's not specific in how it looks. And this is why I've struggled with the vision board. It's a feeling inside of me of not feeling trapped or constrained or having all of these have tos and should do's. And yeah, it feels like that big sigh of unburdening.
First of all, you don't struggle with vision boarding because where we create from is exactly there. And, eventually we have some desires, but your soul already knows what you want. So that's not a problem. So I think, I spend a lot of times getting people to get back to where you're at. So freedom, you want to experience more freedom. You want to unburden, you want to release. And I think ease, joy, and play is really important too. When I look at play for you, it's really hard because play, it's like someone is grabbing your wrist really, 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 really tight and sort of telling you, this is the way you should paint. This is the way that you should do this. And nothing is ever okay. Nothing is ever feels like you're getting the approval or the permission that you desire. So as you expand, and as you expand into freedom and joy and purpose and all of the things that your soul craves and desires, it's going to be important to love that inner child and to hold her and let her know she's safe, and to be aware when the fear comes up, as it very well may do, to remember that that fear is programmed. It's not realistic and that you're safe, and just keep letting her know she's safe. And each time that fear comes up, when you imagine holding that little inner child, I see a little baby, holding her, loving her, caring for her, supporting her, just as you did for your very own child, right? But keeping that separate and different. As you start to imagine that, that's where she's going to be able to thrive. Okay. And come into her own. And really, I wouldn't say a rebirthing, but like a reparenting. And so be aware that when you feel constricted, when you feel unsafe, when you feel unfree, it all comes back to there. It all comes back to there. So whenever you have that feeling, and it's so scary, I see it's like overwhelming fear. It's around sitting with it for a few seconds, loving yourself, and then just spending some time just showering some beautiful love on that beautiful child, because you have so much love in you. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. I have a lot of love, and yes, that little girl needs a lot.
Yeah. And not because there's anything wrong. I see really early, like a teensy tiny little baby, just holding her in your arms and just bathing her with your love. And just do that a couple times a day whenever you think about it. And not from a place of deficiency. Sometimes we think, oh, our inner child is broken because we had these bad experiences. And that's normal because every child is completely egocentric, right? And so every child comes into the world thinking everything that's wrong in my world is wrong with me. That's how we condition. So of course your inner child feels like that, but your inner mom knows different because you have complete unconditional love for your child who is not neurotypical, right? And there wasn't a moment when you were like, oh man, I wish I didn't have this child. I mean, maybe a moment, we're human, but like not many. Not many. Like it was pretty much instant. Like, okay, this is what we got. We're going with it, which is huge. Not every parent, hits the ground running like that. So again, honor yourself, but also give some of that back to you because you need that. And again, I do see a really rough road with a parent that was unfortunately really, really, really difficult because of their own pain. And the way to feel around that is to allow them to be who they are. You've mostly forgiven on a mental and emotional level, but the fear still persists because it was scary. And it's about recreating space in your life for your inner child to thrive. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Yeah. In my recent healing, I'm very aware that from a very, very young age, I felt like I was here to hold my parents' pain.
Yeah. And by the way, they gave you that message. That was exactly what they required and created. So it's time to let that go. Are you able to let that go when you tune into each parent? Are you able to let their pain go, or do you feel like you still owe them something? Your dad in particular is the one that I see, very exacting man and imposing.
Yes, I am able to let it go. My dad has passed, so I am able to let it go. And there's a huge amount of forgiveness and softening and being able to see their pain was their pain, and that was why they were the way they were. So I'm able to let that go. I think I still struggle with the level of the responsibility that I felt on me. So I've been able to sort of forgive them and move. Yeah. But the releasing of the level of the weight that was on me still feels like I can see how I take all of that responsibility on still and recreate that same experience in my everyday life.
Okay. So there's a couple ways to get through that. So I want to talk about that. That was so beautifully put. Number one, you got to forgive you too. Okay. Because the inner child thinks it's all her fault, no matter what we tell her. So just keep reminding her, sweetie, you're brave, you're beautiful, you're wonderful. You took this on so that you could learn so much from the experience, so that you could grow, so that you could expand, so that you could, live your purpose, which is to release all of this. Right. And wherever you are with respect to that is just right. Just showing up is enough, my beautiful friend. Just show. So you've already done the work. Okay. But reminding her how beautiful she is, how brave she is, how delightful she is, how lovable she is. And just give that to her. Right. That's the healing that wants to take place. As you do that, some anger may come up again towards these beings, these people that did not show up for her the way they should. It's okay. Anger is a natural feeling. It's a natural emotion. Sometimes we have to break dishes. We have to howl into the wind. We have to get it all out. So don't be afraid to do that, because that is part of what wants to be expressed from your humanness, and you don't have to be afraid of it. You don't have to be afraid of it. And we can often be angry. I give this example 1,000 times. So sorry, dear listeners, but it's always the one that smashes into you with their cart in the grocery store. And your first thought is, oh my God, that hurt. And I have a bruise on my shin, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to cuss that person out, but they're blind and they have like 5 children that are all having temper tantrums in their cart. And, someone else just pushed into them, It's like, you're going to be mad and forgiving at the same time. It's okay. Right? They're not mutually exclusive, but the feeling is the feeling, and it has to be honored. And you can't truly forgive anybody if you don't honor the feelings first. You can't. It's bypassing. Right? And so true forgiveness is, I feel this, I own this, I understand this, and then I'm ready to make peace with it. Okay? And you don't have to do it all at once. You can mentally forgive, but it's all part of that same process. It's not linear. So having the feelings you have, forgiving yourself for having the feelings you have, but also just reminding that child of how beautiful and lovable she is, because she is. You're amazing. Okay, not because of anything you ever did or accomplished, although you can bring those things up too, because they make us feel good, but just because of who you are and your own beauty, and the way that you looked at your child is the way that God looked at you when you were born. Okay, and you are God, so you are a piece of God. So you get the memo.
Yeah.
The second piece is, we see these patterns in our daily lives and we see what we have learned. And then we have the unlearning process. And the unlearning process, it's interesting, right? Because the moment we see it, if we judge the unlearning, we kind of go back into it, right? And yours truly is guilty of that from time to time. Not even guilty. It's just it's a lifey thing. Like, it's like, oh man, I did that last week where, oh my God, the insecurity came up and the insecurity created something. And then I spent a weekend being like, man, what was that part of myself that created that thing that I don't like? And then I realized, you know what? Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Gotta love where I can't love it, right? Where I'm still struggling to love it. Gotta just be with everything that is and understand that it was a great experience. It was a great learning. It was a great opportunity. And, sometimes too, in this particular case for me, and I don't know if it's coming up for you or it's just a little healing moment for me that I'm stealing out of your session, but, the outcome was actually the right outcome, even though it was created by insecurity. The outcome, like, there was a method to my madness, right? And oftentimes there is. But regardless, part of the unburdening and the unconditioning is to be real present and loving with ourselves when we notice our conditioning coming up. Because that which we resist persists, right? That which we allow transforms. Okay. And so we allow it. We understand it, we honor it, and then we can gently shift to something that we believe to be a little more true. Right? Because the truth of that situation was very different than in my past how I was experiencing it, right? But I had to sort of honor all of the pieces all at once in order to get there. And still sometimes when the insecurity comes up or the conditioning comes up or the pattern comes up, you have to think about, my inner child's having a little temper tantrum right now, right? How do I handle that? With love. With boundaries, with kindness. Sometimes we don't pay a lot of attention to the temper tantrum because I'm sure having a child that is not neurotypical, any child, forget that, but any child, So if we indulge that tantrum too much, then we're in the tantrum with them and it goes longer. But we honor, we have that loving, kind response to the child within us that's having the temper tantrum, right? And then we move on to something else, something we know to be more true. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. I love that.
The third piece that comes through specifically for you, but I think this is relevant to people listening too. I think a lot of you will be writing these pointers down because this is how we deal with our humanity, no matter what the story is. The third piece for you is, and this one is tricky because the first two are important to creating the space, because sometimes when we try to plant seeds, but the soil is still a little bit like dry, the seeds don't germinate, right? But the step 1 and 2 are getting your soil ready for the seeds. But, I live kind of in the desert, except for this past year when we've had 100 years worth of rain. But regardless, like I live in a place where usually the soil is really, really dry, and yet some things definitely still grow, right? So we can always plant seeds because we never know. And seeds can sometimes hang out for a really long time before they find their way into the soil. And for you, planting seeds, very gently, because I feel like sometimes when you poke them in, like there's so much reverberation, because of this patterning and conditioning, that it's not comfortable, but little teensy tiny seeds around. What if I played right now? Right? What if I felt free right now? If I felt totally free right now, what would I do? And maybe bringing just little bits of that into your life when it feels right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
You have some people in your world too that you don't feel totally safe, comfortable, and ready to be free with. I'm not going to say too much because I feel like that's more of a private session, but I'm putting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're going to have to give yourself some space around that relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as you start to do step 1 and 2, you'll be able to plant those seeds. And they might be in little tiny jars right now because your life doesn't feel like it can support like a huge blooming garden. I'm not saying that it can't, but you might not feel ready. But starting to plant those seeds in little jars and nurturing them will be very, very, very important. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. I think that we have done a lot. I'm not watching the time, but I feel like we're almost there. I'm going to let you tune in because I've watched you do that throughout the session. I'm going to tune in again. I just want you to kind of tune in, see what's coming up, and see if there's anything else that you'd like guidance on before we wrap this show up, or anything else that comes through that you want to share.
I definitely feel like there's something around how do I align my business with this idea of freedom. Freedom is a big thing for me, not feeling trapped. I find it really easy when I go into my business to feel that trapping. And at the moment, I feel I'm pushing people away.
Are you in a helping field?
Yes, I'm a coach and a mind-body practitioner.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm almost resisting bringing people in because I fear that they're going to take away my freedom. And yet at the same time, when I'm actually working with clients, I feel really energized. I love what I do. So I've got this push-pull.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, the guides say live your purpose, which we've been talking about the whole time. So hopefully that lands, but write it down. It's a good one. 2, when you are someone who's had everyone else's emotional demands put on you, and you still do, by the way, for your entire lifetime, and you are learning rather rapidly and easily how to change that. So that's a beautiful thing. You are transforming so much and so quickly and turning things around. But because you have that conditioning, it is natural and normal that when you work with clients in that relationship, even though they are paying you and you can say no, and you like to feel sometimes overburdened by their needs and demands on your time. Okay. Also watch, because there's going to be periods of time when you want to be really busy and periods of time that you don't. And it has to do with how much you are taking on in your personal life. When your personal life, when there's just too many demands, you're not going to want to see clients. When you're feeling like you've got that covered, you're going to want to see more clients. Okay. And so, the image that I have, I always felt a great call to work with children. But for whatever reason, I always had the sense that if I had started off my first career working with kids, I couldn't have started my family. For me, it would have been where I make sense now, but I just knew this intuitively, that if I was going to be a mom, I couldn't work with kids for my living, at least to start. Now, when I started my second career in my 40s, I totally specialized in working with kids, and it was perfect. But early on, I didn't have the bandwidth to do both because I was an over-responsibilizer. I was like, I would not have been able to do it, right? And there was some work I had to do to get there. It's all good. It's all fine. Now I can do everything because my kids are all grown up. But I've learned so much from being their mom, which was the very most important thing. But for you right now, when the family stuff, and it's not just your child, feels overwhelming to you, you just naturally shut down the business because it really is too much. Okay. So I just want you to recognize that you're making a choice that's okay, and it won't be like that forever. Now, if you need to get your money from your business and yada, like we can talk about that. And again, you long to have that freedom where you can do this business thing and enjoy it, as much as you want. And, if we have a subsequent conversation, we can totally talk about that because everything that came up until now is supporting you in that. But for now, just honor yourself. And the one, and honor that. And the other thing, I know how much badly you want to do this and express this. It's a coming. You're doing it and you're really good at it when you do it. And part of it too is, we all have to learn to say no. We say no to our clients. I don't take on my clients' baggage when this session is over. I'm not taking on your baggage at all right now, but
you can have it.
No, because it's yours. And we've talked about it on the show. You need it. You need it, my friend, because that's what you're working with. If I took it on, what's that going to do? A, it's not mine, so I wouldn't know what the fork to do with it. And B, I'd be depriving you of exactly what you came here to work with. So why would I take that away? You want to do this. You don't want to have another 12 lifetimes of dodging this bullet and including me in your karma. And we all got to unwind that stuff. Do you really want that? I certainly don't.
No, good point.
Yeah, which is why I don't take it on, right? That's why I understand. But I also say no. I say no to clients I don't want to work with. I say no, in a session, and you're still learning to do that. You're still learning to do that, which is why it feels like a lot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But one thing that you can do to feel more purposeful in your work now when you can't take on and when you choose not to, or you don't feel like you want to take on clients. And again, it's a longer conversation than we have time for. But the one thing that I see is you create a lot of information, books, writing, social media, plans, focus on that because that's your soul expressing itself in a unidirection. When you hand that off, it's done. You try to grab onto it, but just imagine I'm going to create things. I'm going to hand them off. I'm going to create products because products for you are just a little bit better. And when you create the product, let it go. Let it go. Whatever you create, it's enough. I had a reading not so long ago with a best-selling author and a really best-selling author, written a lot of books, and she's in the middle of a big change. And it came through to tell her, it was so interesting. And this podcast has been going on 3 years, so I'm sure the same thing applies. The guide said, look, there were things that you were working out in your first books that you're not working out anymore. But the cool thing is that all the transformation that you have made goes back to those books. And when people read them, they're not just getting the energy that you had when you created them, but they're getting everything that you know now too. It's all accessible to them when they read that book. Okay. So I want you to hear that. It's not just going backwards. Like everything that you create now will grow with you as you grow. And you don't have to hold on to those creations. You let them go. You enjoy creating them. And that is your little taste of freedom for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
Beautifulness. Well, this was a really amazing, fun experience, Avril. And thank you so much for reaching out. I also want to thank everybody here for tuning in because y'all know I love what I do. And I know you all got a lot out of this episode. And so I want to thank you again, Avril, for coming here and sharing your story because I know it's going to benefit a lot of people. And I think it benefits a lot of people. And it's a great example of how when you do you to the best of your ability, which is all you can do, it is always a benefit for everyone else on this planet, no matter how it works. If you hear the story on a podcast, or even if you don't, we are all connected and we are all at the end of the day. I love this quote, walking each other home. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you want an intuitive reading with yours truly, no slots available on the show, but you can find me at victoriashawintuitive.com. You can book a session there. You can book a free 15-minute discovery call to learn more about how I work. And you can also join us over in the Intuitive Connection Premier community where I offer very reasonably priced group readings and teachings as well. So I hope to see you in one of those places. But even if I don't, so glad that you are tuning into this podcast. Love you so much and namaste. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found joy, strength, inspiration, and clarity from today's episode. If you'd like to learn more and connect with an amazing group of like-minded souls, please join us over on Facebook in the Intuitive Connection Community Facebook group, where we explore these topics in deeper detail, have additional live teachings, and host Facebook Lives with our amazing guests. I hope to see you there. And of course, if you want to learn more about me or the work that I do, please check out my webpage, victoriashawintuitive.com. Thank you so much again, and namaste.